Hi, this is Josh Wilson. I'm with Initial.aec. We are a design technologies firm here in Denver, Colorado. And we are a proud sponsor of AIA Colorado. We are a platinum sponsor, and we'll be looking forward to the 2014 AIA Practice and Design Conference. To that end, today I'm joined by Kimon Onuma. He is the president and founder of Onuma Incorporated, and he will be presenting with us and for us in Keystone. The session title is going to be Building Informed Environments. And Kimon, before I ask you a few questions, I do want to let folks know who haven't seen you yet or haven't heard from you what you will be bringing to the table in terms of your background. Kimon has practiced architecture for 3 decades and is a FAIA, I should also mention. He's known for his innovative approach to building informed environments, ecosystems, and cities. Incorporating BIM in his practice more than 2 decades ago, I want to stress that more than 2 decades ago, in '94, he demonstrated BIM benefits on a large-scale U.S. Navy master planning project and is continuing to bridge architecture with data. He currently, or has recently worked with the DoD and the VA to complete a strategic roadmap. There are, Kimon, not to embarrass you, but just a litany of awards here that you have received. A couple that I would highlight for the audience is you've won industry awards, including a 2012 AIA California Council Research and Technology Honor Award, and also received a Presidential Citation Award for involvement in integrated project delivery, or IPD as it's known in our industry. And you do serve on the board of directors for the Building Smart Alliance and was the 2013 AIA TAP chair. An experienced speaker at more than 300 local, state, national, international AIA academic and industry events, certainly widely published in the professional and building industry journals. All that being said, I think we're out of time, Kimon. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, we're honored to have you. It's going to be a great event as always, but I believe you're bringing a lot of interesting things to the table in and beyond architecture as well. So if you will, give us some highlights of what the presentation will be like.
Sure. What's always interested me as an architect, even from the very beginning, before all this technology buzz that's been happening recently, has been about what architecture, really the challenge of architecture, being able to connect complex information, complex challenges, and come up with design solutions. And that goes for not just single buildings, but entire cities. And the collaborative aspect of the profession is what's really always interested me very much from the beginning, whether you're collaborating obviously with engineers and other consultants, but also that connection to owners. And the building informed environments theme really is about that. It's really about how do we think in terms of not only connecting the dots of what's required to build a project, a building, a city, whatever it might be, but also how do we capture those decisions in a way that that building, for example, can live on throughout the life cycle of the facility. Making a smarter building, a smarter city that can actually interact with the environment, for example, is obviously a great concern and interest. And I think architects are perfectly positioned to do that now.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, some of the things that I've seen in your work online, some of the talks I've seen you present in other venues, you speak about the transparency that's needed in architecture in terms of the workplace and in just in the field. You talk more about the communication that's necessary as we consider this idea of all this collaboration and sharing in the projects.
Right. Well, I think as architects, we're sitting in a very interesting place because we've always been wired to collaborate. We have to collaborate to be able to come up with solutions. On the other hand, we're also in some cases, maybe depending on where the project is and what the business environment is, sometimes we might feel protective about our knowledge and,
mm-hmm.
and the decisions that we make in our buildings and our drawings, for example,
mm-hmm.
in the past. And AI even supports that from a business perspective. On the flip side of all that, I think in the environment we are today, not just architecture, but just in general in this world today, it's really about how fast can we share our knowledge with others to come up with solutions that were not possible before. So it's really about broadcasting out the knowledge that not only we have, and we're not at the center of the world. That's another key piece to this, is
mm-hmm.
that I feel very strongly that we're very good at connecting the dots, but we still need input and outputs from a lot of different sources. So that connection part is a thing that's very difficult to do today. It's not something that you can just push a button and make happen, and it's not solved by any piece of software. So that inherent ability of architects to do that we've been wired with, how can we translate that into a format that actually creates new opportunities, not only for us, but just for the profession and the world in general? I think there's a lot of incredible value that we can bring to the table. And I'm just worried in some cases, in a lot of cases actually, that we're not doing that fast enough. And the faster we can figure out how do we make those connections and freely share our knowledge, you might lose something in the process, but you gain a lot more. And that's been proven a lot recently with social networking and everything that's happening around us in the world, that the faster you can share your knowledge, the more relevant you are, the more closed you become, the less relevant you are. And that's really the exciting part for me is solving that challenge.
Ah, wonderful. Wonderful. You know, one of my questions that I originally prepared, really before I even began to prepare for speaking directly to you, was if you weren't an architect, what else would you be doing? Once I started watching more of your presentations, you are so much more than an architect, and you use the architectural skills in different venues, and your company, beyond being an architecture firm, is highly involved in innovation and even software development, open platforms. What would you say? How has your interest been sparked in that, and how would it tie into what you do today?
It started a long time ago, actually, and even when I was in school as an architect, training to be an architect, and going through all the projects and things that we've worked with over the years, I've always been interested in the information and knowledge part of the project. So we obviously have to process a lot of information and collect examples from the past, for example, or best practices or current trends, all that information that we're bombarded with before all this technology came around, in fact.
Right.
We're great at assembling this, and we kind of digest it in our heads and work with a team and charrette and come up with a solution, right? And in that process, I've always thought from the very beginning, there's elements of that can be codified and captured. And there's other elements that you can't capture, that design part of the creativity of being able to assemble complex data and come up with a solution, the creation of a design that takes more than just technology. So that mixture of all that interested me, and that intersection of how do you actually increase the time that you spend on the fun stuff, the creative side, and automate the stuff that's not fun, the number crunching, for example.
Yeah.
And the more that we can do that, the more time we have to do the fun stuff, right? Yeah. It's always been of interest. That's been an interest of mine. And that kind of translated into thinking in terms of, we kind of accidentally got into software development. It was not intentional. But what I found over the years is the way that you develop software, the most challenging part of developing software is not the actual coding of the software. It's actually understanding what's needed to be done, basically the use case, right, and then creating the software. So that mixture of all this stuff together kind of got us where we are right now as a hybrid firm.
That's a great, I mean, the idea of automating the mundane so that you can engage I guess the higher value work and the stuff that is fun, if you will, is
right.
It's a genius move, certainly. You know, some of the themes I've seen come up in listening to you previously is the idea of learning from the past, predicting the future, solving problems even before they happen, train wrecks, as they've been alluded to in some of your presentations. How would you say your work in architecture is fueled by these themes?
Well, the train wrecks and learning from the past and hitting the problems sooner is something that, again, we were trained to do. In a charrette environment, you get smart people in a room or a group of people with different ideas, and you kind of work it out, and you try to get to the train wrecks as fast as possible to come up with a solution, which means going through a lot of iterations and being comfortable enough to throw things away that don't work and moving on. And then sharing the solutions with others and ideas. And that's another thing, that as you're capturing these, whether it's an algorithm or the data that we've talked about earlier, and being able to comfortably share that secret sauce with others. It's not. It's sometimes seen as, well, I'm not going to share that part with others because it might be a competitive environment where you might lose something. But I think the more, again, those connections that you can open up, you see more train wrecks. Therefore, you can predict the future. And that's essentially what we're doing as architects. We're imagining the future, so we really have to think way outside the box in a lot of cases to get there.
Well, we're nearing the end of our time, Kimon. I did want to fire a couple things at you since I've got you here. What would you say is the one thing you cannot live without?
Wow. Okay. My family. And actually, what's interesting with these technologies today, it really gives you the freedom, which actually ties back to spending more time with family as well, too. We're no longer stuck in a single location and desk. We can move around, and that's our natural environment. As architects, we should be out there on the streets, basically, in the cities and the buildings, in the world, visiting different places. And the technology has actually allowed us to do that. And actually, that's been a lot of the driving force behind even the software tools that we do create. It's really about how do you eliminate that need to be in a specific place to be interact. And that's goes back to the connectivity part. So I think the connections are important for me.
That's great. All right, then lastly, you've thought a lot about the future. I'm sure you were thinking a lot about the future in the 80s and early 90s when you engaged in a lot of activities that some folks are just now starting to engage in. But what do you think architecture will look like? And what I mean specifically doing architecture. What will that look like in, let's say, 2024? What do you think?
Right. Well, we obviously have a lot of challenges ahead of us. The sustainability and energy and global warming and all of those huge, gnarly problems that we're faced with. And I think architects are perfectly positioned to step into that role of being able to solve these complex problems. I wish that architects would be more proactive in many cases. I mean, especially with the technologies out there, we're kind of waiting for solutions to come to us. We should reverse it and think in terms of the user interface of the software is really our environment and the data that connects to it. And we're the ones that really understand the environment. Therefore, we could step right into that role. It's just waiting right for us because the software coding is not the hard part, like I said before. I go to a lot of industry conferences, and the term architecture is used so much in software that I have to constantly say in a software conference that I'm a software architect, but also a building architect. So thinking in terms of how do we move into that role more aggressively and think in terms that we're actually creating software in many ways. We're coding what we want to be built. Therefore, we should think in terms of we're creators, we're designers, we're also software developers in many ways, and we're becoming more so as the technology becomes easier to use. So that's one wish that I had for architects in general. We really need to be much more aggressively thinking in those terms, or we would miss the opportunity.
Well, and I'm reminded by a quote you shared in one of your presentations from Henry Ford saying, if I would have listened to what the people wanted, I would have made a faster horse. And the idea of what's around the corner is going to be that of our innovation and the ability to create something that maybe isn't even out there yet in terms of the collaboration and the connectivity that is going to continue to be important, probably ever more so. So this is a shrinking globe, as we know, and I'm sure you'll be on the forefront and moving forward towards that end. Kimon, I thank you so much for taking the time out this afternoon, and we are really looking forward to seeing you in Keystone in October. And so again, thank you so much, Kimon.
Yeah, I look forward to being there.
All right, we'll see you then.